everyone. Coffee and EVs, June 27th, 2023. Glad everyone was able to make it. We might still get a few others who show up, but we'll go ahead and get started. So we've got a couple, visitors with us that aren't too common. Trina Wafel with WVU NAFTC is with us, the National Alternative Fuel Training Center. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Consortium.
Consortium. Okay. I know it was close. And then we've also got Curtis Conley with us as well. I know, Curtis, you were at the Marshall event, you said, but anything else you want to introduce to the group, or let us know a little bit more about your car, your interests?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I drive a Tesla Model 3 2022, and I was also at the Parkersburg event there a few weeks ago as well.
All right, awesome. Glad you're able to make that one.
Yeah, and I live in the Huntington area, so.
Awesome. Glad to hear you're joining us. We got folks from all over the state. Go ahead, Taylor.
I can also vouch for Curtis. He's very, very knowledgeable. He actually brought up a lot of nice information to the Parkersburg event. So
great.
Yep. Good guy to have.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and kick things off. Just a few news items that I had pulled up as maybe something just to kind of kick off the conversations. We've had a busy few weeks in the electric vehicle world. A lot of changes, significant changes happening. So let me share my screen. If I can get the right one here. There it is. All right, so I know that we knew the Chevy Silverado EV was coming, but I didn't think we had seen very many specifications on it. And I just saw, I guess it was yesterday, that they had the 450 plus mile range with the 200 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is of course, a monster battery pack for a commercial vehicle. But some pretty impressive specs from Chevy. It's going to give the F-150 Lightning a run for its money, and I guess the new Ram 1500 whenever it shows up. But anyone else see anything on this? Any thoughts about Chevy's entrance into the truck market, EV truck market?
I was watching Kyle Connor's video a little bit ago, and he said the charging curve is better than anybody else's right now.
Well, given the size of the battery, I would kind of expect it to be pretty generous on its charging. It looks like they've got a pretty good hit on their hands as far as, especially for like a heavy-duty fleet vehicle. I think this was a work truck with the kind of the heavy-duty interior and all that. So I don't know. I think you'll have a lot of municipalities, utilities, folks like that really interested in a truck like this. And with that type of range, even if you're towing something, you should have pretty good range, even if you cut that in half.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one thing I had seen. Then also we saw today, I sent something out about this, but Volvo has also joined in the NACS North American Charging Standard plug, formerly known as the Tesla plug. So Volvo has joined that group. So now we've got General Motors, Ford, Rivian, Volvo as the big legacy OEMs that are supporting the Tesla plug. I think Volvo said it would be 2025 forward is when their vehicles would be equipped with the plug, which I think pretty much matches up with everyone else.
What does that do for Electrify America and these guys? I bet their stock's taking a hit.
Well, actually, let me hold that thought for just a second. Let me move to the next. There we go. I think you're going to see more of this. Those other charging networks are going to have to also adopt the NACS plug if they want to stay relevant, because there's, if you've got 85% of all the electric vehicles now announced being sold supporting this plug going forward, they're going to have to adopt it and provide support for it.
Right. Just a short-term bleep for them that's going to be tough to take.
But I mean, but also on that point, something else I think is important. I mean, just changing the plug. I mean, yeah, there may have been some issues at EA and other stations related to the plug specifically, but I think most of their problems were elsewhere. Their software, the reliability of their billing, authentication mechanisms, the screens, were the chargers actually functional? You know, adopting a new plug doesn't fix any of that. So if you don't fix that stuff, it won't matter if you have a Tesla plug because it's still not going to work.
Right. And I wonder, y'all, if a lot of the problems they had is they're dealing with every EV under the sun, and Tesla's just been exclusively Tesla. It's like Apple software and Apple, you know. Now Tesla's going to have to deal with all these crazy vehicles. Is their system going to be as reliable when that happens?
Well, and that's a good topic, and you know, a couple thoughts on that. One, I mean, if you looked at the announcements from like Ford and GM specifically, they are not going to hand over the data and the information from their owners, which means that you have to use a Ford or General Motors app to authenticate and have billing and all of this stuff. You're not using the Tesla app. So that means General Motors and Ford have to build all of those mechanisms. And then they have to integrate with Tesla's APIs for the supercharger network. So now that's on them. And how well will they do that? How reliable will that be? So, you know, a Chevy or a Ford could pull up to a supercharger and still have a bad experience because Ford or GM has nerfed the billing and they won't authenticate the session. So that could still be an issue. And if they don't work closely with Tesla on implementing to Tesla standard, you know, Tesla's vehicles use the supercharger, you know, protocols and standards. And if they don't implement those properly or correctly, then their vehicles still aren't going to work very well. So they need to work tightly with Tesla to make that happen. So yeah, I expect there will be problems with, you know, Ford and GM vehicles at Tesla superchargers, especially at first. And, you know, making sure they get all the bugs worked out, or they don't, you know, they could roll out an OTA that nerfs something. So, you know, it's going to be a little tricky there at first.
I saw an interview with the head of ChargePoint, and he was saying that ChargePoint had problems with the credit card companies, that the credit card companies thought all these little charges that they were getting from these locations where the superchargers were drug deals. So they canceled them all. And not only, and because the CCS protocols didn't have any diagnostics associated with them, nobody knew what was going on. The ChargePoint didn't know why it was canceled. The customer couldn't find out why it was canceled. They had to do a real detective job to figure out they were getting canceled because somebody at the bank thought they were drug dealers. So it was a real mess on their part. You know, basically their whole network went down for weeks.
Well, and those kinds of things are going to, you know, happen, and it's how well do those providers like dig through those issues and quickly and rectify them.
Right.
But we know it's possible. I mean, gas stations have had pay at the pump for, you know, decades now. And, you know, people can walk up, swipe a credit card, or make a payment and pump gas. So these, you know, the charge points of the world and Blink and all those guys are just going to have to, you know, get their whole ecosystem into, you know, gear and making sure all that stuff works properly and smoothly.
I've actually experienced that issue with Tesla's charging stations, but it was my credit card who was decided that my charge from Tesla was not legitimate.
Mm.
Brand,
Scott, did you have something?
yeah, which brand of credit card was that?
It was Sam's Club.
Hmm.
Mm.
And
One
I
more-
also had it with Discover, but Discover has I switched back over to Discover, and Discover hasn't had any more problems with it. They've flagged all charges from Tesla as being legitimate.
That's good.
So I don't know if anyone else follows Lanny Hartman, who we met down at the Princeton Supercharger celebration, and he's been driving around the country testing supercharger stations. And last week he reported he went to 85 different superchargers that had a total of 900 and some plugs or stalls, and one of them was out of service. So he reported a 99.9% reliability on all the supercharger stations. And he's got a protocol where he goes up to it and he sees if any are working badly and all that. It's pretty interesting. He's doing this as a survey as he furthers his wife's goal of charging at all the supercharger stations.
Oh, they're building them so fast, it's going to be tough to keep up.
Oh, it's got to be hard.
Yeah.
I wonder if Guinness will recognize that as a first achieved record.
I don't know. There's if you go to the Tesla Motor Club forum, there's a thread on that of how many different people have gone to, and the leader has been to more superchargers than there are in the United States. He's gone to Mexico and Canada to charge also.
Wow.
Hardcore.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, you couldn't do anything else as fast as they're rolling them out.
Hey, speaking of the chargers, I was at a conference 2 weeks ago, a meeting 2 weeks ago, and someone brought up this idea that corrosion. You guys might have seen, if I did it right, sent it out to the group. Do you guys pay attention when you're charging? Do you pay attention to the state of the
connector?
Connector, right. And are you noticing any corrosion, or have you heard anything about a corrosion problem?
Not on superchargers. I haven't seen that, but those are usually pretty busy. They get used a lot. I could see maybe something that didn't get used as much having some issues, but I don't know. What have others seen?
I've seen some that were pretty dirty on my way to Colorado and back, but never had a real issue with charging. I only had one station that was not charging at the speed it should, even when I came back through to that same charger.
I've heard of people vandalizing them by filling them with dirt and stuff, and so the plug is blocked and you can't plug in. But I've not heard of any real corrosion problems. You know, it's a copper connection. You know, as long as it's being used once a week or something, that should be scraping any patina off of the copper. So,
what about CCS stations or other providers? What are folks seeing? Rick, I know you've been to a few.
Can't hear you, Rick.
You're on mute.
I'm sorry, I was looking somewhere else. What was the question again?
I said, Trina had a question about have folks noticed any level of corrosion on the connectors at charging stations? And so we were talking about superchargers, but then I was asking, you know, folks who've looked at CCS or EA, other types of chargers, have you seen anything like that?
I've never noted a problem, but one wonders if they're going to be replacing these with Tesla plugs, if they'll be a little bit less eager to keep them up to date. I don't know, but I've not noticed any in my travels to Dayton and Columbus and Detroit.
Okay.
And Baltimore.
There is a possibility of damage to the plugs, the bent pins and things like that, and people have reported that sort of thing happening. Mm-hmm. But if it's a Tesla plug, there's always 8 of them or more, so you just move to another one and then you call Tesla and report it.
I've seen a couple level 2s that were pretty ratty, especially when people wouldn't roll the cord up and, you know, left it laying on the ground. It gets rained on or whatever. So, yeah, you can see that probably a little more common on level 2 stations that aren't well maintained.
Yeah.
All right, well, here's another article I wanted to throw out for everyone. I know there's some concern about, the Tesla connector and folks, other companies adopting it and charging companies adopting it, and what does that mean? And is Tesla going to have a lock on things going forward, and those kinds of concerns? But I did see that the SAE is moving quickly to standardize the NACS connector. So that will make it less, Tesla-centric if it is an approved standard by SAE. So that's also should be some good news for folks and maybe alleviate some of those concerns.
This brings up a question I have on the CCS plug, which has 7 pins. We don't use number 1 and 2 at all. And in fact, many of them have it taken off, so there's not so much friction. But we use the big pins at the bottom, numbers 6 and 7, for the DC current. But the one right above that in the CCS is the grounding pin. And then the 2 on the side of that are communications pins. On the Tesla plug here, does it also have 5 connections? Does it have a plus and a minus for the DC? It's got a grounding, and then does it have the same 2 communication wires that, although they're sending different information, are being interpreted? So that's just right there, just to the side of it, little tiny pin.
Yeah, you've got it does have 5.
Yeah.
Well, remember Tesla said on the J1772 committee from whenever Tesla was formed, they always had a rep on it, and they use the same codes as J1772s, and or
just
whether it's the 2009 or 2011. The 2011 is also called CCS, and so they're completely compatible with it. Plus, they use other signals in addition to what's in the standard.
Right, Tesla can task you with the VIN of your vehicle and know how to send the bill, and J7 can't do that at all.
Well, the CCS is also extended now to do things like that. So you can, with a couple vendors, hook up and just plug in, and it bills you, and you start charging. That's completely possible. They're using an extension from the International Standards Organization, the ISO, whatever it is, that's been adopted into CCS.
Yeah, I think you typically call it plug and charge.
ISO
standard.
Yeah.
But legacy autos, though, they're not just going to be able to put a new receptacle in. They also have to change all of their computers to interpret the data that's going through pins 4 and 5.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be some implementation, on the legacy OEM side, and that's, I think, why we'll be waiting to 2025 for them to get all those done.
Yeah. But the adapter does that also.
And the adapter does it, yeah.
Yeah, so.
All right, and then the last thing I had queued up, and again, this was just sent out by Thornton, I believe, yesterday, was we're seeing AEP is offering a lower tariff at night if you want to charge off-peak and pay as almost 10 cents less per kilowatt hour. And if you drive enough and charge at night and charge at home, then this could be a good deal for you. I could see this maybe being even a bigger deal for fleet usage. If you were using guzzling down a lot of kilowatt hours at night to recharge a fleet, I could see this being a big deal. But even if you drive a significant number of miles, personally, it could also be a big deal.
Yeah,
you want to chime in and tell us more about this?
Yeah. So if you read all the stuff in the case that was before the Public Service Commission, the great bargain there is not quite as good as it may seem. So if you let me read from a paragraph in the joint stipulation, or actually from the commission staff, it says they attached a comparison of what an average bill would look like under the Appalachian's current rate schedule and their proposed PEV, that's plug-in electric vehicle rate schedule. It should be noted that the attachment assumes a monthly usage of 1,000 kilowatt hours for a customer's house and 225 kilowatt hours. This is based on a 2,700 kilowatt hour annual usage for the customer's electric vehicle, along with all the usage occurring during off-peak periods. Under these circumstances, a customer's bill during the summer period would be $194.36 if they're only under the regular residential service schedule, and $186.43 if they were under the PEV schedule or the they also have something called time of day schedule, which you all can already do even if you don't have a plug-in hybrid. There's several different schedules, and of course I have a different schedule because I have solar panels. I'm a generator, so I should be paying about $12.50 a month plus whatever little surcharges are applicable. But there are a whole bunch of surcharges that are not discussed in the basic charge that's in the notice. So I just don't want everybody to think that they're going to make a huge killing. The idea of this particular case filing by Wheeling Power Company and Appalachian Power back in late 2022 was that with the federal legislation, they anticipate, I think they said about 3,000% increase in the number of electric vehicles in West Virginia or something. I read that somewhere in the case, but so they're worried about a huge increase in demand. I said, that'd be wonderful. We had a huge increase in demand. That would be a victory for us. But the idea of this is to offset this, to try to convince people to use, if they're going to plug in, if they're going to use electricity in their house, to try to do it during the off-peak periods, so they will not create demand during the on-peak periods, which requires the electric company to use more, create more energy, which means like burning coal, for example. So, this thing can be to your advantage. What you have to do is do research. No, don't go just on what I put in what's in that notice. See how the whole tariff looks, including surcharges, which were not set forth in the notice. So whether you'll come out ahead or not, that depends. But this is for residential customers.
Well, actually, and I meant to say that, ask you that, Thornton. I said something about fleets earlier, but
yeah.
is this so? This would not apply to any type of commercial activity.
No, unless you were charging the vehicle at your house, but you have to show ownership of the vehicle to avail yourself. So normally a fleet is it's owned by a corporation or a limited liability company, so it wouldn't apply. This is supposedly kind of revenue neutral for the power companies. If people used it, it's not supposed to give them a windfall. It's not supposed to give them a big loss. They're just trying to change our behavior. But I just want to make sure everybody knew it was available.
Yeah, thank you for that. And John, did you have a question?
Yeah, so one thing I read in there that there was certain chargers that were applicable. You had to have a certain charger, but I could not find a list of chargers that were accepted.
Yeah, and there's still another case that was before the commission that they came up with a rebate, but I don't think I ever fell in that category. That was for people that I guess had solar panels. So the power company doesn't always do the best job of publicizing things, even when they benefit the customers. So I just happened to see this in the legal ad. Marty Wyrick has asked me repeatedly, have you seen some type of a plug-in vehicle, at your home, benefit for the customer? And I was unaware that this case had even been filed in 2022 because I didn't actually look at the open docket of the commission. It was only after the case was closed and they put the legal ad, and I was just going through. I actually subscribed to Gazette Mail in the paper form and was reading and found that. I said, "Wow, this is something Marty's been asking me for years, months and months." So, anyway, let's hope that at least it'll be available also to people in the other parts of the state that don't have Appalachian Power or Wheeling Power. But you have to have a special type of meter to avail yourself of this, an AMI meter. So it'll be kind of a bill that you would get. I guess you would pay one bill based on a meter just for your plug-in vehicle, to measure the the energy you use for that vehicle during the monthly period, and then probably be another meter that will be measuring the electricity used in the remainder of your house. So it's all kind of complicated. But
Yeah,
I'm glad we have the choice of at least applying for it. And I wouldn't be able to get it because I have solar panels. But for those of you who don't have solar panels, and if you live in the service territory, it gives you another option.
And John, to your question about the chargers, they're probably referencing that list of equipment that AEP will give you a discount, a rebate on if you purchase a specific charger. So I assume that they're probably meaning that list of UL approved chargers.
and Energy Star listed.
Yeah, Energy Star. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this, as EVs become much more prevalent, this will become a very important item to avoid additional investments by the power companies, for peak. Basically, it's a peak shaver. They've already got a program where they'll pay you $8 a month or something if you put a switch on your air conditioner that turns it off when you get their load gets too high. I think last year they turned off people's air conditioners 10 times or something. It turns it off for like 3 hours or 4 hours, like at 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock. And the whole idea of this is to get people off the peak so they don't have to build new power plants and build new substations and upgrade their transformers and stuff. So you charge at night when there's not as much demand.
Which is a no-brainer. I mean, if you want to incentivize people to change their behavior, you give them a financial incentive and they'll generally do it. And most people are charging at night anyway. If you basically just have to set a timer on your vehicle to start charging at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. or whenever it is, it's not really any great effort on your part to do that.
It's 8 p.m., but I'd hate to see if you got 5 EVs on your transformer and they all flip on at 8 o'clock.
I was actually kind of surprised it was that early that they actually ended it at 8 p.m. or started at 8 p.m. I thought it'd be later than that.
And here it says peak is 6 to 8.
Yeah.
6 a.m. to 8 p.m. is peak. Just during the weekdays and holidays and weekends are non-peak, so you can charge anytime you want to on those days.
Hey, Rick, did you have something?
Yeah, I did. I'm sure I'm wrong, but correct me. I thought when I bought my Bolt back in 17 that our home off all the time was about 2 cents a kilowatt, 2.5 cents. And then I thought somewhere over the last 6 years it went up to 3. But is it actually 3.891 now? Because I use this in my calculations a lot, that whether it's 10 times cheaper. If it's 3.891, is that what I'm paying now for residential?
No.
Are you American Electric Power?
No.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. Sure. AEP.
Yeah.
You're AEP. Okay. Well, but yeah, it's a lot more than that. This is that 3.891 is this new proposed off-peak schedule. Otherwise, you're paying the normal, 12, 13 cents a kilowatt hour.
You're paying 13 cents, Rick.
I think it's about 14.5 with AEP if you're over like 2,000 kilowatt hours, and then under 2,000 kilowatt hours, I believe you pay around 15 or 15.5.
I'll have to check our bill.
So I'm going by this staff exhibit that was prepared by the Public Service Commission staff. And for regular residential service, okay, so you have a base rate of 0.08558 cents per kilowatt hour. Then you add a surcharge of 0.6511, which I think gives you something like about 15 cents per
kilowatt
hour. Then there's also a surcharge on top of that, which is called the MRBC surcharge. And so how all those surcharges interact And that's also before you add, if you live in a city, whatever public utility tax. I'm exempt from because I have South Charleston. I'm a senior citizen. I filled out an affidavit, but I had to complain to Appalachian to, read the letter I'd sent them that they weren't supposed to be charging me that. So, I think you're probably paying 17, 18 cents per kilowatt hour in a lot of places if you use Appalachian Power. That's your basic rate. I mean, I remember doing that research before I got solar panels because I was trying to see, well, what am I paying? And I was doing averaging and everything, try to figure out. And well, whom do you call to find out what the tariff actually means? When I filed a formal complaint against Appalachian Power back in 2020 because they hadn't hooked up my solar panels. It was during COVID, and I talked to one of the lead attorneys, and she said they didn't have enough people on staff even understand Appalachian Power's tariff. I said, you mean if I'm filing a complaint against them, we have to go to them to tell us what their rate schedule means? That was one of the things that bothered me when I worked at the Public Service Commission, especially with the household goods movers. Nobody in the commission staff, that is, the people who are supposed to, monitor the cases and everything, actually knew what it meant. So, you get this thing from Appalachian Power, and you probably have to find somebody at Appalachian Power to actually translate what it means. It's frustrating.
Yeah,
we have a very
definitely.
limited number of people who actually understand what these tariffs mean. So I just want to give you that as a caveat.
Okay, and we have another item from Thornton as well about Timberline.
Timberline Mountain.
Oh,
yes.
Timberline, yeah.
Yeah, I met their general manager last week, and I told him that I was a member of the West Virginia Electric Auto Association, and said, because I've spent, this is a company, Timberline Mountain is owned by a company, interesting, called the Perfect Family. They're based in Indiana. So the Timberline Resort used to be owned by a doctor and several other people. They had all sorts of difficulties and were in bankruptcy and litigation. And so eventually the resort had to be sold. And so the bidder was this company that was already operating a ski resort, and they were based over in Indiana. And they purchased it, and they have spent millions and millions and millions of dollars completely, really fixing up Timberline. So on another matter, I just happened to have lunch with several people. One of them was Tom Price, who's the general manager, and I copied him in with the email that I sent out today, because I said, what are you going to do about, charging stations for electric vehicles? He said, I need someone to tell me where to put the charging stations. So that's why I sent out the email. People make contact with the person, because if they're willing to spend millions of dollars, and the way the whole world's changing, it would be their benefit to put in charging stations at the resort. It'd be better. Yeah.
There actually might be a couple of federal programs right now, potentially, that could help them pay for that too.
Well, at a minimum, there should be tax credits that will help, that they'll probably.
Yeah, tax credits. But I'm thinking about the Mid-Atlantic Energy Electrification
Project. Yeah.
I think Empower might be for workplace, but depending on how they viewed themselves, they might qualify for some of these programs that are coming through the West Virginia Division of Energy, that would allow them to help underwrite some of those expenses.
Kelly was copied on that message that came out today, but we could follow up with Kelly and Garrett there in Office of Energy and see if they might have any thoughts on programs like you mentioned, Trina, that might be useful.
Yeah, if there's interest on the part of the owner already anyway, because I think that's somewhat, it's like trying to find these people who want to marry each other.
Matchmaker.
You got to be a matchmaker to say, we got this, we have some of this funding, and it's not been the easiest thing in the world to find people who are really interested in taking the dive, that meet the qualifications for these different grants, the right type of entity, right?
Well, we got a professor down there in Tennessee that wants to give money away in West Virginia.
I'm helping him. I'm helping him.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Ted Kula, the Summers County commissioner, called me up about, I don't know, 3 months ago out of the blue. Oh, we did this project with NEFTC years and years ago. And I was just wondering if you could get me some DC fast charge. And I'm like, I don't do DC fast charge, so I don't know if I can help you. And then Ping Chen, the PI at Tennessee, puts out an email to all of us in West Virginia that are part of his project. And I'm like, well, I got this guy, Ted Kula, who wants one. Because, he's thinking about, because they're at the entrance, one of the entrances to the new new national park, the New River Gorge National Park. And so he's wanting to so he put in an application. He's got an application in, and they're looking at it. And then he brought along the Region 1 director, Jason Roberts. I think Jason Roberts has been reaching out to people in his economic development region, and he's put in 5 applications. So,
I know Ted Kula.
Do you know Ted?
I was at a meeting with him last night. Yeah, I'm in the same county, in Summers County.
Yeah. So he jumped on it immediately. And Kelly was like, she called me up the next day after we had this meeting, and she's like, he's got to be talking to his utility. He's got to be talking to the utility, because, that can have an impact on what the county pays for electricity rates if it's not done right. So you got to get the utility involved right away. And I don't know all the details. All I know is that every time I go to any EV event, the first thing anybody tells you is contact the utility ASAP. And so I reached out to Ted like 3 times. Have you contacted the utility? And he said, yeah, he has. So.
And speaking of Dr. Chen, he just joined our call.
Oh, really? Is he on there?
Are you with us, Dr. Chen?
I saw his name pop up.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I was
a
little bit late for my family affairs, but great meeting. Great to join. Thank you, China. I think that you brought up a good point about the utilities infrastructure in development. I think the level 2 has less concern compared to the DC fast charging station. It's pretty sure on that end. And as we see more and more of the DC fast charging station can plug into the network, I think that's something. But I want to pay attention. Let's say also at the same time, areas in the rural area, our EV population is still pretty low. If we're talking about the level 2, we can worry about that. But I also like to share another. I come back from a conference called ACT Expo for and I can view about what might have some kind of in the future. Surprisingly, to me is when I attended those conference called ACT Expo, I assume that California might be way ahead of us in terms of developing the charging station. But they have a huge issues when building, working with utility to build infrastructure, and every kind of the projects related to infrastructure has a lead time about 18 to 24 months, and that is a shock to me. I don't know why. My guess is that they already have a lot of EVs already plugged into the their infrastructure they reach the capacity. Things of vision. I just want to be here and have a lot of this group back. How you working guys has been about on this outreach event. It's very organic. Have been doing a lot of events. You guys, I may go to the planning and then call for participation in West Virginia. Everything is a very sustainable way. I just want to say thank you to you all and see how we can move you and forward in West Virginia.
Well, Dr. Chen, the reason we wanted to speak to you is we've had a business reach out to us, a ski resort, locating level 2 chargers on their property. And they asked us to get in touch with them. We're probably going to do that in the next few days. But we wondered, are you a potential source of funding for a ski resort in West Virginia?
We do. Yeah, we do. I think we receive for our Rural Imagine project, which actually this WVEAA National Association is partner of that. China is different tasks. Funding. So we have the funding to put in the level 2 DC fast charging station and the DC fast charging station. In total, about 40 for West Virginia. We already secured the funding for the equipment and some installation. So we would like to put in the charging station, like level 2 charging station in the lot. That would be perfect time if you drive EV and to have ski and just turn the vehicle in and spend a few hours, find the time. The day's done, it will be pretty much charged, or at least charged for several hours. So we do have the resources, and those resources already be secured. But at the same time, the way we kind of provide the funding, meanwhile we'll also request some kind of in-kind contribution towards installation, mostly in terms of installation, site preparation, and this mechanism is very similar to out of the federal grant. You receive a certain amount of funding from our project, and you could share a small portion. In many cases, around 20% of the total project cost. And that's what we are doing. The difference is we secure the funding our potential site host.
Okay, well, Dr. Chi, I think what I'll do is I'll forward the message that we received via one of our members, Thor Cooper, and I will forward that to you and to Kelly Bragg and the Office of Energy, and then maybe we can see what can be done and work with those folks.
Just update here. In a rural Reimagine EV project, we already have about 6 or 7 EV charging station sites already determined. Some of them already passed, and to the NEPA for the next step is the site preparation and is installation of the commissioning of the charging station. So I'm actually I was probably concerned about maybe about how easy to commit for a community to adopt the chargers. I think if we connect to the right people in this area, I think it's not difficult. So now this opportunity, right, it's actually converting. I'm seeking to adopt the charger and this, screening the information, like some of the local business like to put in the charging station, and the site it's a perfect kind of convergence. So yes, we please do. I think the Mr. Cooper is also here in the meeting room. Thank you for bringing this up.
All right. Well, we will certainly follow up on that. Appreciate it. I know we're getting kind of late in the hour, and we got about 13 minutes left, so I just want to open it up and see if anyone else had any news items to share. But before I do that, I do want to bring up future events that'll be coming up. I did just register the National Drive Electric Week event for the Eastern Panhandle. So I am scheduling that for the last Saturday in September, which is September, I think it's the 30th. So that's when we're planning on doing the Indu event up here. And so Marty and folks down in Charleston and then Rick over in Huntington, I don't know if you guys are also thinking about an Indu event for that time of year. But if we've got anything, please let us know, and we'll see if we can get that publicized.
Did you ever get anything back from Marcy?
I did not. I did send her a reminder and just haven't heard back.
Okay.
Robert, I have a question related to the NGO event. In the past, we have seen the NGO event is consistently happen to the locations we are familiar with. Have this team thinking about broaden the site, the scope, an area of scope? So, for example, go to some other area that we may not have done this type of event before, so that more diverse group, diverse community, diverse area can be impacted by our outreach efforts.
I mean, generally, from a logistical standpoint, because West Virginia is kind of rural and we're kind of spread out, it's up to volunteers in the individual areas to kind of run their events. And since we are volunteers and most of us do have day jobs, and I'll be taking annual leave just to run my event, it's a little difficult to go to other regions that may require travel or overnight type stuff. So it's more of a logistical challenge to do that. I mean, I definitely see where you're going. I think that would be interesting to do that. It's a resource constraint logistical challenge for us, unless we happen to have a volunteer in that area who's willing to take that on and put on an event in that area.
Yeah, let me share some of our experience. We have done quite a few now smaller outreach event in those towns, much smaller towns than we may have been to. Towns that have only 1,000, 2,000 people. That's very common in West Virginia and many other rural areas. So what we have been doing is we like to be smart in terms of bringing EVs and volunteers. We know our volunteers all have limited resources, so we are asking each event to bring 2 to 3 vehicles at most, no more than 3. For sure. Most of the time, we bring in 2 EVs, 2 kind of early EV adopters. Sometimes what we are doing here, I just bring 2 members of my team, 2 electrical vehicles, and go to those areas. It's more than enough as an outreach, but it creating an opportunity for those underserved area to be served. That's one thing I think. It's kind of desert in terms of outreach, and then we kind of trying to fill in this hole. We are doing that, and we will continue doing this by bringing a team. But I would like to see how many of you would like to travel. For example, it's 40 or 45 minutes away, another county, another maybe county seat, to spend a few hours and chat with them, because you will see a different perspective for those people who may have never seen EVs and never chat with EV owners about EV. That's very different. I guess in the Huntington area, the people as a college town, people are more open, and you see different group. I've been in Huntington earlier this year. It's an amazing group, very open. But I imagine in many other West Virginia counties or cities, the perceptions of EV may be still behind. So
Yeah, I said so.
Yeah.
I do understand where you're headed. I don't know that would be appropriate for INDU, National Drive Electric Week, since there was a lot of planning and lead up, and you do have to publicize an event in an area that could attract enough people. But as a separate endeavor or separate projects, maybe we could look at, like you said, trying to head out to, if we get volunteers to have go out to a less populated area and schedule an event. Maybe we could coordinate that with the Office of Energy if they could add any resources to that or publicity to that. That might be useful. But yeah, we could certainly talk about that.
We just in case, just let you know, when you plan an event, if there's no one happening, let us know. We are ready to help, even with travel. Because what will happening is, if you are able to find a volunteer to help locally, great. It's a very organic way. If you need additional support, call us. We have a bigger group here ready to travel to different places, Kentucky, Ohio, West Virginia, all rural area. We cover you up if you need additional group to come and showcase to the EV.
Okay, appreciate that. All right, any other news or other items? Rick, did you have something? You're on mute. Rick, you're on mute.
Thanks. Curtis had notified me about this Cars and Coffee at the Human Being, and I sent out a request on Google whether or not and Larry was the only person, and Curtis and I. So what it is, it's every once a month they invite in a bunch of car owners, antique, muscle cars, whatever. And I asked them, can we have a contingent of electric cars? They said they'd love to have it. So the next one that we'll be able to do is July the 15th. And I think that we will do that, even if it's just only the three of us. But it's on that big parking lot, and other people come to see the other cars. I wonder if on September the 16th, which is the day they're having that, we could tag along with that with our MNU and set up a separate, don't be lined up with them, but have the vendors. I was at Joe Holland Hyundai yesterday. They said they really want to participate. They've got two Ioniq 5s for sale, including a limited right now. So they said they would bring something over there at that time. So maybe we'll just try, because you have to tag it onto something else, and do it just by itself. No one's going to see it. We can't afford to publicize it enough.
No, I mean, September 16th is a little, that's a little early for INDU, the actual week of INDU, but I think it's close enough that you could call it INDU and we could make it work.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good. Let's try to do September 16th.
And where was that at specifically, Rick?
It's at the P Ridge Plaza, there's a Human Being there right by the road, and there's it's the old Kmart Plaza. There's a Chinese restaurant right across.
Okay, well, but which, South Charleston, Huntington?
No, Huntington, Barbersville.
Huntington, Barbersville. Okay.
Rather than Huntington.
Okay.
And what do they call it?
They call it Cars and Coffee.
Cars and Coffee. Okay.
And
it's a coffee shop.
And the name of the coffee shop is called the Human Being.
Yeah, Human Being, BEAN.
Oh, very funny.
Yeah.
So the event location is P Ridge Plaza, 5634 US 60 Huntington, but it's really Barbersville.
Okay.
So what I think if we do it is in July as a trial, we'll be able to know whether it's worth it at all to do it in September as an NDU, or else if anybody knows of any other event that's happening in that end of September that we can tag along onto. I don't know of any. I don't even know where to go to look.
Well, that's why I've been trying to get a hold of Marcy for several months. I guess I'm going to call her tonight.
Rick, you were at Joe Holland Hyundai in Thornton's neighborhood in South Charleston yesterday.
Yeah, I had to go. I'm going to have surgery next week on the 6th. I'm going to have my heart worked on again. And I had to go for pre-op yesterday. And when I came home, I stopped at Joe Holland. They were excited to talk.
I was there yesterday morning charging because I took somebody to the hospital.
Oh, yeah. They were, it was 1 o'clock or
they have like 5 Ioniq 5s there, I think.
Yeah, they
whole row of them.
They got a lot of SEs, and nobody wants that low trim. If you're going to buy a Hyundai, you want to buy the Limited. And so this white Limited they won't keep that on the lot too long. But now maybe the NACS decision will make people back off from Hyundai for a while. I don't know. But I know that the base level cars they've had trouble selling.
Yeah,
And also the tax credit isn't available on the Hyundai, so I guess that's
Correct.
another challenge.
they're offering an equal rebate, but you have to pay tax on the rebate, I think is what the guy told me yesterday.
Rick, I can probably help on that. September 16th. Marshall is not playing at home that day either, so that's a good day.
Yeah, that'd be a good day.
That'd be awesome. And yeah, if you can get an F-150 or a Rivian or something there, that's always a popular vehicle to show. The Lightning that we had at our Indu over here last fall was it was very popular.
There's a lawyer in Charleston who has a Rivian.
Well, if anybody knows a Rivian owner, that would be great. Those are also very eye-catching.
Yeah, I've got an acquaintance up. Matter of fact, I think he's in the group. Lives near my in-laws. He has an R1S, and might be able to get him.
Awesome.
We had a member on Facebook for a little while that has a Rivian, but we've never been able to get him out for anything.
Yeah, I think that might be him. He's a physician, I believe, down at King's Daughters, so scheduling might be a challenge, but I'll reach out to him.
All righty.
Robert, I've got a couple other items I just thought about.
Sure.
One thing was the Lordstown Motors declared bankruptcy apparently today, sadly.
I saw that. Yep.
And then lastly, as I saw a report that they expect over the next few months to a year that they're going to have about 5 million car per year over capacity. So expect car prices to drop, as well as I'm sure EVs somewhat as well. And so it's something to watch for if you're thinking about a purchase in the next few months to a year or more. And one last thing that just popped in my head is Taylor, I've got solar now on my roof. It's almost ready to be powered up as soon as we get the power company. But one thing, and one thing we need to realize is one way to not have much infrastructure costs of additional transformers and so forth and heavier power lines is get rooftop solar on people's houses throughout the area, because you essentially on a bright sunny day are powering not just your house, but probably at least your neighbor or neighbor and a half. And it can help the power company quite a bit on sunny days. And of course, then they've got to worry about the night and rainy days and everything, but at least it's a help.
All right. Thanks for those notes, Scott. Anyone else have anything? Well, I will have one final thing. This Friday is my birthday.
Oh,
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Let's all
And
sing
I
happy
am
birthday.
I am picking up my new Model Y on Friday.
Ah, what a nice present.
So my birthday present is this Friday.
That's a great birthday present.
That's
Yeah.
great timing.
Just happened to work out that way.
I was doing some research for a talk I'm going to be giving next week, and it said that Hawaii has shut down their last coal-fired power plant as of last month, and there's 0 now that are coal-powered. And they also said in the same article that 1/2 of the houses in Honolulu have solar panels.
Good.
That's a huge penetration.
Talk about a big duck curve. They have a problem over there.
Yeah, I think if we want to look at time of use rates and things that are coming down the pike, we can pretty well look to California or Hawaii whenever it comes to those different rate structures, because they are definitely leading that.
Well, and then I think the other thing we're going to see, I don't want to take too much longer, but virtual power plants and pairing residential behind-the-meter storage with those solar arrays, you're going to see more and more of that. And, of course, vehicle-to-grid, you'll see more of that as well, especially with commercial and fleet stuff. But, yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff with the flexibility of demand, being able to alter demand with, turning devices on and off, and you can provide solar to the grid. You can do battery power to the grid on demand from all these homes. I know Texas and California have some pilots running with power walls now. Vermont's been doing it for a while. Thinking about tens of thousands of homes with battery packs that can really release energy on demand. It's going on. We're going into a brave new world.
Hey, I've got one. Can I add one final
Sure.
thing there? I am hiring an EV program director. So if you just Google WVU hire EV program director and you guys have any good leads, I mean, I have a good lead. So, but if you guys know anybody too, please send them my way. I'm looking for somebody to really help me out.
Go back to work, Marty.
Thank you.
And actually, Trina, I think I've got the link.
What?
I can, when I send this out as a recording in the notes, I can
Okay.
include that link.
Thank you.
Change your job, bro.
I'm retired.
Well, once I get my time in with the feds, I'll be looking for something like that.
I'm tired. I don't know if that counts as retired, but.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming out. Appreciate it. It is a couple minutes after 8. We'll go ahead and say goodbye, and we'll see everyone. Well, we've got a members meeting coming up. Well, let's mention that. We have a members meeting. Should be second Tuesday in July. That's July 11th. So July 11th, 7 p.m. That's our next members meeting, and then our next coffee NEVs will be July 25th at 7 p.m. last Tuesday of July. All right, so that's our next 2 upcoming events, and hope to see you there.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.